Is this thing on? Yeah? Okay. Welcome back. It is January 4th, 2026. Let's just establish the vibe right now. You've already broken your resolutions. The futuristic gym membership you bought last week is already gathering digital dust. You ate the emergency holiday chocolate for breakfast. It's fine. We're all disappointments here. Lean into the skid. We are diving deep today because apparently I hate myself and I hate fun. Why do we subject ourselves to these topics? Because the shallow end of the intellectual pool is full of lukewarm takes and influencers trying to sell us supplements, and I just can't swim there anymore. Strap in, nerds.
All right, look at today's menu. I was doom scrolling through philosophical abstracts at 3 a.m. yesterday, as one does when they've lost control of their life, and I decided we need to talk about the big one, the enchilada of existential dread. Today's topic is the profound philosophical connection between mortality and the value of life. Yeah, we're going there. The preface is basically this. Life is only sweet because it's short. It's the McRib theory of existence. If the McRib was available year-round, nobody would care. But because it vanishes, suddenly it's a culturally significant sandwich. That's us. We are the McRibs of the cosmos. We have value because we have an expiration date. It's a very fancy way of saying YOLO, but with tenure.
So, if death is what gives life its value, what happens if we try to, get rid of it? For some people, this isn't just a hypothetical question, it's a mission. Check this out. Philosopher Nick Bostrom frames aging as this great evil in his Fable of the Dragon Tyrant. He pictures it as a monster that demands a horrifying tribute of thousands of lives every single day.
And the weapon to slay this dragon? It's got this super sci-fi name, Longevity Escape Velocity. Okay, let's break this down. This is the point where science starts to outrun death. For every year you're alive, medical technology adds more than a year back onto your life expectancy. You'd literally start gaining life faster than you're spending.
And look, this isn't just science fiction. We've got actual technologists and biogerontologists putting dates on the calendar. Ray Kurzweil thinks AI could get us there within a decade. Others, like Aubrey de Grey and George Church, are pointing towards the mid-2030s or maybe 2050. They think this breakthrough is just over the horizon.
But every good detective story has witnesses who warn you to drop the case. What if solving death is actually a curse?
Enter philosopher Bernard Williams. He argued that an eternal human life would inevitably become intolerable, just a state of cold, joyless boredom. He even looked at a fictional character who lived for 342 years and concluded her problem was that everything had just become meaningless.
His whole point was that the very things that make our lives worth living, our desires, our sense of purpose, they're all tied to the fact that we have a limited time to actually get them done. If you have forever, there's no urgency. Eventually, you do everything you'd want for nothing and you just fall into the state of profound indifference. Without an end, everything becomes meaningless.
And it doesn't stop there. Other philosophers like Pigeonberg and Leggett have basically laid out a whole rap sheet against immortality. First, injustice. In a world where life expectancy in some places is half what it is in others, how can we morally justify spending billions to make the rich live even longer? Second, isolation. An endless life could totally shatter the social bonds of family and community that give our lives structure. And third, a deeper kind of meaninglessness. So many spiritual traditions teach that true fulfillment comes from moving beyond the self, not from preserving it forever.
Hang on, pause the existential crisis, we gotta pay the bills. Look, my landlord unfortunately does not accept witty cultural commentary or crippling self-awareness as rent money. If you are enjoying this spiral into the abyss, do me a solid. We just established that life is short, right? Tick-tock, buddy. Don't waste your precious, finite amount of remaining heartbeats not subscribed to this podcast. Smash that button, leave a 5-star review saying something vague and menacing like, "He knows what the owls are saying." It confuses the algorithm and validates my incredibly fragile ego. Do it now before the heat death of the universe.
All right, we're back. So what's the number one objection you always hear when this comes up? Overpopulation, right? The idea that we just fill up the planet. Well, let's actually check the alibi on that one. Researchers ran the numbers for Sweden, which is a pretty typical developed country.
They modeled this really extreme scenario. What if aging just stopped cold at 60? For everyone, you'd think the population would just explode, wouldn't you? Well, after 100 years, the population only increased by 22%. Just 22%! That is a surprisingly small number, nowhere near the planet-bursting figures you might imagine.
And this is where the evidence gets really fascinating. The whole shape of society changes. Instead of a pyramid, it bulges out at the top like crazy.
You get this huge population of very, very old people. It's kind of weird to look at, for sure. But the crucial takeaway? Our big fear of catastrophic overpopulation? It seems like a total red herring. The numbers just don't back it up.
So the practical objection seems pretty weak, but that philosophical case against immortality still seems strong. But what if there's a final twist in the case file?
So let's bring in our final witness, philosopher John Martin Fisher. He really pushes back on this idea that an endless life has to be a boring one.
And his argument is actually pretty simple. I mean, think about who you were when you were, say, 4 years old. You probably remember almost nothing, right? Your values were totally different, but does that mean your 4-year-old self had no reason to care about the person you are today? No way! We change like crazy, even in a normal life.
And he makes his point so brilliantly. We all expect to change. Our values, our interests, they evolve. So Fisher basically concludes, and this is the real knockout punch of his rebuttal, that there's no fundamental reason a 6,000-year-old version of you would be any less you than your 60-year-old self is to your 20-year-old self. The connection holds.
All right, that's enough. My brain is starting to taste like burnt toast. I think we solved death. You're welcome. The key takeaway is that you should eat the cake, buy the stupid shoes, and ask your crush out, because eventually you're going to be stardust again, and none of this matters. It's comforting in a horrifying sort of way. This auditory hallucination was produced, as always, by the enigmatic FireflyHaku. I'm convinced Haku is actually an immortal AI, or an eldritch being that exists outside of time, and they just find our little human obsession with ending adorable, like watching a hamster worry about its retirement plan. They tolerate my meat sack anxieties, and for that we are grateful. Thanks for letting me shout into your earbuds. Go outside, touch some actual grass, stare at the sun until your eyes hurt, and remember, you're temporary. See you next week, if we're still here.